No one saw this coming. Uganda exposes Germany's hidden agenda. In a stunning geopolitical twist, Uganda has abruptly severed all military ties with Germany. No warnings, no back-channel talks, just a cold, calculated shutdown. And the reason? Allegations that the German ambassador was secretly meddling in Uganda's internal affairs. The global community was caught completely off guard. On May 25th, Uganda made headlines by terminating every aspect of its defense partnership with Germany. What triggered this sudden fallout? A veiled accusation claiming Ambassador Matthias Schauer was involved in subversive activities. But what does that mean exactly? And why now, just months before Uganda's pivotal 2026 election? There was no dramatic press conference. No televised debates. Only a concise but forceful announcement from the Uganda People's Defense Forces. Effective immediately, all military collaboration with Germany was off the table. The word that raised eyebrows around the world was subversive. According to the UPDF, credible intel had linked Ambassador Schauer to suspicious engagements with unnamed political and military groups deemed hostile to Uganda's stability. The public never saw evidence, but in national security circles, perception can be enough to trigger action. Uganda's response wasn't cloaked in diplomacy, it was bold, direct, and unmistakably serious. While the statement didn't outright condemn Germany as a whole, the message was crystal clear: Kampala had lost faith in Berlin's representative. And that alone was grounds for shutting things down. Germany had quietly woven itself into Uganda's military backbone. Beyond headlines and parades, it was Germany that powered some of Uganda's most crucial tech behind the scenes. From cyber defense and encrypted radio networks to secure battlefield medical data, Berlin wasn't just a symbolic partner. It was a vital operating system. Uganda didn't just sever a handshake, it unplugged an entire command structure. And nowhere was that more obvious than in peacekeeping. Uganda's military remains a frontline contributor to ATMIS, the African Union's mission in Somalia. A high-risk campaign to blunt al-Shabaab's insurgency. While Germany didn't send boots on the ground, it funneled support through training, infrastructure, and EU coordination frameworks. That's why Kampala's break isn't just bilateral, it's a warning shot that could shake the entire regional security setup. And then there's trade. While not strictly a military matter, defense diplomacy tends to ripple into business. By 2024, Uganda-Germany trade had exceeded $335 million, spanning everything from construction machinery and vehicles to high-end medical equipment. Much of this gear fed into Uganda's logistics chain, directly or indirectly supporting its defense posture. The lines between civilian infrastructure and military readiness were blurred by design, and now they've been severed. That's not just inconvenient. That's disruptive. Uganda didn't simply cancel contracts. It yanked out a deeply embedded network. And what stood out most? The quiet confidence with which it did so. Because this wasn't just a technical rejection, it was a political maneuver. One shaped by ego, pride, and a growing intolerance for outside scrutiny. Germany may have supplied the tools, but Uganda had taken full control of the switchboard. And the man behind that switch? He wasn't just another soldier. He was a son, a successor, and a controversial force in his own right. To grasp why this alliance shattered so fast, you need to understand the man who transformed diplomatic friction into a full-blown rupture. Every geopolitical fallout has its faces, and here, it was a clash of personalities. On one end, General Muhoozi Kainerugaba, Uganda's military chief and son of President Yoweri Museveni. On the other, German Ambassador Matthias Schauer. Muhoozi isn't your average general. He's the heir to Uganda's political throne and its most provocative military voice. His presence stretches far beyond barracks. He dominates Twitter with controversial takes, slams opposition leaders, and floats presidential ambitions with almost no filter. To Western diplomats, his behavior is alarming. To many Ugandans, he's a paradox, both protector and provocateur. Ambassador Schauer, meanwhile, reportedly voiced growing concerns about Muhoozi's militarization of politics. Not through public speeches, but behind closed doors, with fellow European envoys. He questioned the general's tone, the optics of his online outbursts, and Uganda's tightening civil space ahead of the 2026 elections. That was enough. In Uganda's political climate, even quiet dissent can be seen as defiance. Especially when aimed at the president's son. Muhoozi didn't issue a rebuttal through formal channels. He attacked publicly, branding Schauer unfit to represent Germany. This wasn't framed as disagreement. It was framed as betrayal. And once Muhoozi draws a line, the UPDF follows it, without hesitation. What should have been a minor diplomatic spat escalated into a national stance. And it wasn't just about one ambassador anymore. It became a matter of national dignity, of dominance. Muhoozi, as heir apparent and military chief, couldn't afford to appear vulnerable to foreign critique. Not during an election buildup. And not from a representative of a Western bloc many Ugandans now view as arrogant and outdated. Schauer, for his part, likely misjudged just how deeply nationalism now pulses through Uganda's political heart. He operated from an old playbook: quiet diplomacy, gentle critique, mutual respect. But Uganda in 2025 isn't playing by those rules. It's playing to assert power. Muhoozi made that crystal clear. And unlike past diplomatic tensions that simmered for years, this one exploded in weeks. There was no attempt to defuse, no backroom negotiations. Muhoozi used the military, not the foreign ministry, to pull the plug. That choice was no accident. It underscored that in Uganda today, diplomacy flows through uniforms, not briefcases. And by sidelining traditional channels, Muhoozi reinforced what many had suspected: Uganda's center of gravity has shifted. The generals now steer the nation's foreign posture. In the aftermath, Germany's ambassador stood isolated. And a larger truth emerged: this wasn't just about protocol. This was a calculated message. Now the world is asking, was it really about Schauer, or a much broader effort to push the West to the margins? Because the context is undeniable. Uganda's sudden rupture with Germany isn't an isolated reaction. It's the sharpest signal yet of a wider, deliberate shift. A shift that's accelerating as Uganda barrels toward its most contentious election in years. This isn't just about who wins the presidency. It's about who controls Uganda's story. And in that battle, foreign diplomats have lost their role as neutral observers. They're now cast as intruders, surveillance in suits. Over the past year, tension between Uganda and Western envoys has steadily grown. EU diplomats raised alarms over alleged police violence, arbitrary arrests, and suppression of political opponents. Rights groups condemned shrinking press freedom. But those reports no longer land as helpful guidance. They hit like accusations. Uganda's top brass, especially its military and dynastic elites, are reframing criticism as intervention. And that isn't just rhetoric. It's strategy. That nationalist message, only Ugandans should shape Uganda, is resonating. Especially in rural areas still haunted by colonial trauma. And in army circles, Western calls for reform are increasingly seen as veiled power plays. This sentiment plays perfectly into a narrative of sovereignty. Especially as whispers of a potential Muhoozi presidency grow louder. The more foreign voices speak out, the more the ruling elite digs in. For diplomats like Schauer, this created a dangerous bind: stay silent and appear complicit, or speak up and be branded a foreign operative. In this high-stakes environment, even polite concern about military neutrality becomes a trigger. And what's emerging now is even more alarming: the militarization of diplomacy. Uganda's foreign affairs aren't just being handled by its foreign ministry anymore. They're increasingly shaped by the army itself. The UPDF has evolved. It no longer just guards the state, it defines Uganda's global image. That explains why Germany's suspension came not from civilian leadership, but directly from the military chain of command. And the timing wasn't random. Uganda's less than a year away from elections, already expected to be explosive. The opposition is fractured but defiant. Civil society is gasping under new restrictions. Journalists are being arrested. Voter registration processes are shifting. And Muhoozi's name keeps rising in political speculation. The entire system is closing ranks. And that means controlling every inch of the playing field, legally, digitally, diplomatically. That's why Germany's ambassador became a target. Whether Schauer crossed a line is almost irrelevant. In a climate where foreign attention equals suspicion, his mere presence became political. Diplomats are no longer welcomed as mediators. They're viewed as meddlers, as narrative shapers, as potential spies. But this doesn't mean Uganda is cutting itself off from the world. In fact, Kampala still wants partnerships, just not with strings. The new message is clear: no more leverage. Not moral. Not diplomatic. Not economic. Uganda wants deals, not lessons. So suspending Germany wasn't just a reaction. It was a warning. To every embassy in Kampala, adapt to the new playbook, or be sidelined. Do you believe this was a step too far? Or is Uganda simply taking back its sovereignty? Drop your thoughts below. Does Africa still need Germany? Or is the continent carving a new path forward? If you want more stories like this, bold, unapologetic, and truth-telling, subscribe, hit the bell, and stay with us as we uncover the untold side of Black history, power, and the rise of new African voices. This wasn't business as usual. It wasn't about foreign aid, election monitors, or a typical diplomatic misunderstanding. The military, not the foreign ministry, took charge, signaling that this went beyond political theater. It was a calculated security measure. There was no expiration date on the suspension, no roadmap for reconciliation. The UPDF made it plain: the freeze would remain until the issue was fully resolved. What might that resolution look like? Would Germany quietly recall its ambassador, offer a formal apology, or fight back diplomatically? Berlin didn't stay quiet. The German government quickly dismissed the allegations as baseless and ludicrous. Their foreign ministry stood behind Schauer, insisting that he had done nothing wrong. But Uganda wasn't moved. If anything, Germany's denial deepened Kampala's distrust. This wasn't just about one diplomat. For Uganda, it was about sovereignty, about drawing a red line and daring anyone to cross it. And to many observers, the move wasn't made in haste. Defense ties with Germany had been deeply rooted in Uganda's military modernization efforts since the early 2000s. Germany had supported Uganda with practical training, military medicine, peacekeeping logistics, and technical assistance. All of that was now gone, swept away in a decision that seemed to suggest something more had already been breached behind the scenes. Perhaps even more striking was the silence. Uganda's foreign ministry said nothing. There were no follow-up statements to clarify the UPDF's claims. No efforts to smooth tensions. The absence of civilian voices suggested the military wasn't acting alone. The decision likely had approval from the highest levels of power, possibly even President Museveni himself. This was more than a security breach, it was a political warning. And its timing was razor-sharp. Uganda's general election is fast approaching in 2026, a period already marked by tension, arrests of opposition leaders, and heightened Western scrutiny. In this climate, even a diplomat's off-the-record remark could be perceived as foreign interference. So was Ambassador Schauer simply caught in the crossfire of a larger power game? Or was he the tipping point of an already boiling situation? Either way, Uganda didn't hesitate. It acted decisively, and didn't look back. For decades, Uganda has carefully balanced relationships between Western allies and Eastern powers. But this move felt like more than a one-off diplomatic spat. It looked like Kampala was choosing a new strategic path, one that leans harder on autonomy and regional alliances. To truly grasp the weight of this decision, you have to look past the headlines. Uganda didn't just cancel meetings. It dismantled a defense partnership that had been strategically built over 20 years. The Uganda Germany military relationship wasn't flashy or widely publicized, but it was deeply valuable. Quietly, the two countries built a sophisticated support system based on specialized training, joint medical programs, and peacekeeping expertise. One of the most vital components was military medical collaboration. Germany, with its advanced battlefield medicine, had long partnered with Uganda on everything from trauma surgery to disease control and crisis response. At facilities like Bombo Military Hospital, German and Ugandan doctors worked side by side, handling not just battlefield wounds, but Ebola, cholera, and other regional outbreaks. This wasn't humanitarian charity. It was strategic readiness. Uganda sits at the crossroads of some of the most unstable territories in East Africa. Its military regularly operates in conflict zones like the DRC, South Sudan, and Somalia. That made Germany's investment more than helpful. It was essential to regional security infrastructure. And now, with that lifeline severed, a crucial medical defense gap has emerged. Then there's the matter of training. German officers didn't just teach soldiers how to march. They helped shape Uganda's military code, advising on legal frameworks, rules of engagement, disaster response, and hybrid warfare strategies. For a military that often juggles both internal insurgencies and external operations, this technical expertise was gold. German training introduced systems for discipline, accountability, and modern mission execution that few outside forces could replicate. Losing that connection doesn't just impact Uganda, it reverberates across regional peacekeeping networks. Yet, despite all this, Uganda cut the cord. Why? Because from Kampala's perspective, no amount of technical assistance was worth the risk of foreign overreach, especially during such a volatile political period. And the fact that the decision came from the military, not the diplomats, suggests Uganda is putting national security and autonomy above everything else. This wasn't a misstep. It was a message. A warning to Western nations that Uganda's sovereignty isn't negotiable, even if the cost is high. Now, the world is watching. Will other African countries follow Uganda's lead and reassess their military partnerships? Could this spark a broader shift in how African states handle foreign interference? For now, one thing is certain: Uganda isn't playing defense anymore. It's asserting control. And Germany, along with the rest of the West, just got the message loud and clear.